Happy morning, masters. Today, in our sharing session, we have a youngest Paima master. I would like to welcome Vandana in this session, and I would like to introduce Vandana to all of you. She's a dedicated learner. Currently, she's pursuing her master's diploma in fashion designing after she had completed her BSc in fashion design. And her journey into the realms of mindfulness and meditation began at the very tender age of 4, introduced by her parents. And since sixth standard, she started meditating seriously. Vandana has embraced meditation, finding solace and growth through the practice of PSS and meditation. Beyond her academic pursuits, Vandana actively contributes to the community as part of the Paimal backend and organizing team. Her creativity shines through her involvement in crafting Paima events, flyers and posters for Paima events, adding vibrancy and flair to each occasion. Additionally, Vandana had showcased her communication skills as an anchor for PMC Tamis, a series of insightful interviews titled Question and Day with Vandana. Let us all welcome Vandana as she shares her journey of inner exploration and its intersection with the outer world. Happy morning, Vandana.
Happy morning. Thank you so much, Mansi, for that beautiful introduction. And kudos to you for carrying the session so beautifully. Yeah, so
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. And hello, everyone. It's very nice meeting you all here again today. So, yeah, as you've known the topic, the four enemies. Generally, when we say the term enemies, it's always enemies with other individuals, it's never within ourselves. When we say enemies, I have so many enemies outside. Yeah, yeah. But have you ever thought that we deal with enemies within ourselves? There are many enemies that we should deal within ourselves. So, this is one topic where I'll be mentioning the four main enemies that we should deal with within ourselves. So, the first enemy is fear. So, you can say, how can fear be an enemy? Yes, fear is stopping you to grow beyond yourself. So, it is limiting you. When you're in fear, you won't be able to achieve many things. You constantly draw a boundary around yourself. So, in this fear, I'm going to give four subdivisions. Firstly, body fear. So, many of us, while having fear, we have fear of death or adventures or diseases or body consciousness. In this era currently, so many fears and insecurities like, how do I look? Do I look good? Is my body fine? Am I competing properly with others? All these are insecurities and fears that we need to deal with and come out stronger. And also in body fear, when you see people performing arts, they're very conscious. For example, if someone is performing on stage or dancing or anything, they're very conscious of their body. Am I doing it perfectly, or is anyone going to judge me? So all these fears, we are very much invested in these fears. We are not trying to come out of it. We are almost living in a circle of a certain fears surrounded by us. So it is very important for us to understand consciously that we do have body fears, that is, be it adventures, death, diseases, looks, anything related to our body. We need to understand and come out of that fear. Secondly, mental fear. So coming to mental fear, most of us, have this too much overthinking of the past, future, and gossiping fear also. When we start gossiping, there's a unknown fear created in us. Like we are gossiping. When we are gossiping, it is very nice. Okay, it's like amritam to our ears. Very nice. It's very fun. Time pass, all good, but it creates a mental fear deep down in our subconscious mind, which we need to understand. I know gossiping is something we sometimes get involved unconsciously. We do not know it is gossiping. We just keep talking and it goes on. But when you take up challenges like, okay, I should not gossip for today, or I should not be involved in any kind of gossip, then you consciously take that effort. So we had a gossip challenge in one of the Paima Tamil Nadu sessions. So one day we had this challenge of no gossip. So the first day when I was like practicing, like, oh, whenever no, I'm gonna talk to someone, I was very conscious. Okay, is it not gossip? Am I involving myself unwantedly? So that day, I very consciously took an attempt, to stay away from gossip, and it really did help. So when you take up these challenges, it helps you to understand that you are involving. Otherwise, we do not know that we are involving ourselves. When you take conscious challenges like these, it helps you to understand your mind and what you're talking. And then we consciously take that effort to, okay, we are involving in some kind of gossip, let us stay away from it, or let us shut our mouth for some time and talk what is really necessary for us. So, in this mental fear, all this overthinking and thoughts of past and future also matter a lot. And main cases of depression come from these overthinking and too much analysis. Basically, Patri sir says don't do too much analysis. Just live in that moment. And if it's past, okay, learn from it. If it's for future, plan well for it. That's it. Don't think too much ahead of your time or too much behind of your time, and no collapse your mind. So it is very important to be in the present and understand what the present requires, not about the past nor the future. So this is called mental fear. When you are in a overthinking mode or in the past or the future thinking mode, it creates a fear. See, say example, if I'm thinking about my future, I want to be like, okay, in 10 years I want to achieve so much, I want to reach this stage, and how am I going to plan it? Is it going to get executed well? So too much thinking and too much planning creates fear. And at the end of the planning, we have a answer like, okay, am I gonna achieve it? So when we have that question, am I gonna achieve it or will I make it? It creates some kind of fear and low confidence as well. I have planned so much, but what if it does not align? So all these fears tend to have a effect in the present moment. So we should be very conscious of our fears and insecurities and understand how to deal with it. So the third one is intellectual fear. So what is intellectual fear? So intellectual fear is nothing but not having self-confidence, low self-esteem, no clarity in life. So when does this happen? When you do not do meditation. So generally youth in the present generation, they have so much doubts on their self. Will I be able to achieve? What if not? They're running in this rat race. I know society, pressure, and all of this, but when you do not have confidence on yourself or on your goals and have very low self esteem, will I be able to achieve? Am I capable of this? So, in these cases, we have this intellectual fear arising in us, and also no clarity in life. Some people are very confused. A, B, C, D. Which one do I go? Just sit down, plan for yourself, and choose the correct path. Take guidance, and focus on what you want, just not about what others tell or what do you think is competitive in this field. No, what do you want is more important in this thing. So when you take up what you want and give an analysis for that, you will come out of this intellectual fear. So next one is soul fear. So coming to soul fear, we all have, if you see elder people, they have the soul fear of, did I get mukti? If I die, will I go to heaven? So this is only soul fear, nothing else is soul fear. So why do you get this fear? When you are not spiritually stable, when you haven't done anything for your soul, when you have not grown spiritually. So when circumstances like this have arisen, you won't have the soul fear then and there, but in the future it takes a toll on you and your mental health. So we recently went for the Kashi Yatra, me and my family, and everyone were elder people. Only our family, we were like younger ones. So when the elder people came, they were like, we came to Kashi for to gain mukti. If we see this place, we'll get mukti and we'll go to heaven. I'm like, you have to do meditation. You have to have soul growth. Only then you'll get mukti. Just by going out and seeing everyone, seeing all the gods doesn't give you mukti. You should do something for your soul. Only the spiritual growth and the spiritual contentment when you are going to die is what gonna gain mukti for you. It's not like going somewhere seeking mukti in the outside world does not give you any kind of mukti. So it is very important that you grow spiritually and be very stable and understand and balance the middle path, as Buddha says. You have to enjoy everything and maintain that balance between your personal life and the spiritual life. Only then you will go in the correct direction and arrive at mukti. And also, on the soul fear arises when you do not teach meditation to others or spirituality to others. When you gain the knowledge and have it within yourself, some kind of fear arises deep down in yourself that you might not know or understand. So many people in PSSM, at the very starting stage, they be like, okay, I've done meditation, everything is nice. After some days or some months, they start having a unknown fear in them. And when you ask why, or when we do any analysis of why they are having that fear, most of them, they do meditation for themselves but not teach for others. So when the knowledge you've gained, you're not giving it to others, you'll have that soul fear. So it is very important for you to learn and also to teach and also help the community and people know about spirituality and importance of it. So just like how spiritual growth is important for you, you should remember that spiritual growth is important for each and everyone surrounded by you. So these are the four fears: body fear, mental fear, intellectual fear, and soul fear. And also in body fear, I would like to include one thing. So body fear also includes learning new things or new adventures. So I would like to give another example of mine. So initially in 10th standard, when I learned scooty, I had this fear of going in the roads. I just learnt and kept the scooty in my house. I was doing very good puja. I was not even touching it. So when my mom asked, take the scooty, go, you've learned, you have to start riding. Obviously, the roads will be full of people and traffic. That's how you should learn. I used to give so many excuses. I do not have license, so police will hold me. I look like a small kid. I'll get caught and all of this. So slowly, when my mom pushed me, no, that's not how you should be. When you have a fear, you should dive into that fear. What is the fear that I had? I might get into an accident, or someone might hit me, or I might hit someone. And what if I get injuries or anything? So, this is body fear. So, when you get into that fear and achieve it, then you look back and see, okay, that's not even a fear, and how easily I had got through it. So, and that was one experience. And recently I learned car. So, car driving, same story. I learned car driving for 6 months. I did not touch. I just kept the car like that. And I did not go anywhere. When I'm going out, also, I'd be like, Daddy, you take. No, I'm tired today. I have like pain. I'm feeling sleepy, sleepy mode. I can't drive. All these nonsense excuses I used to give because of the fear that I had in myself subconsciously. So when I took over, okay, no, if it's written for me to happen something, I cannot change it. But it is in my control for me to dive into that fear and overcome it. And now I must say I have got over both the fears, driving a scooty and car. So it's been great. And I realize those are not the fears, something that are very hard or difficult for you to overcome. When you get into that fear and dive into it, you'll understand, okay, this is very small. When I was thinking in my mind, it was very big. But when I get into it, it is very, very small. So, this is what we need to understand. And always be adventurous, always be experimental of your life. Just do not create a small boundary and a set. So, these are the four fears. Next enemy is laziness, our favorite thing. So most of the time, all of us are lazy or giving some excuses, postponing things, and all of that. So again, in this we have four types of laziness. First one, body laziness. That's like postponing things, not doing works then and there, which even I am dealing with it and I'm trying to overcome it. So in body laziness, if you have to do a work then and there, you give so much excuses. We'll do tomorrow. No, we have so much time. Even in assignments, I think all of us can relate, all the youth. If we have 10 days, we do not do the assignments for the 10 till 10 days. Only the day before the submission, we sit and put in all our hard work and achieve it. I know we can do it. We are capable of it. But I do not think that is the correct way. We need to do works by simplifying it and doing it then and there, so that you do not have so much stress on your body and mental health. So next one is mental laziness. So mental laziness is something related to laziness dealing with mind or laziness to think. So I was dealing with this laziness as well. So when someone asks, no, what is the calculation of some easy addition or multiplication, I know I can do it. I know 1 plus 2 is 3. But I have a phone and I have a calculator in that phone. So okay, open the phone, do the addition and tell the answer. That is called mental laziness. So we do not want to use the abilities of our mind. We want to go into more easiest ways, or what is easy, something that do not stress our mind. But we need to stress our mind. That is what it is there for. When you stress your mind, it becomes more creative. When you are going in the easiest way, like using calculators for some addition, subtraction, or googling for some easiest things, or when you cannot remember something, you do not take the no opportunity to think and recall it. You immediately ask the other person, what did you tell the other day? I forgot, can you remind it to me? So that is called mental laziness. Just take 1 minute, just recall it, and then okay, this is the answer. Why do you what was the requirement for me to ask to someone else? So this is called mental laziness. The more you become mentally lazy, the more the mind stops to function and it stops to deliver the creativeness within you. So always keep your mind active, always be creative, get into some creative fields or some hobbies like dancing, drawing, painting, art and craft, anything that is creative. So when you get into these creative fields, you automatically start applying and using your mind very actively, and it helps you to keep your mind very healthy. So this is another kind of laziness, that is mental laziness. So coming to intellectual laziness. So intellectual laziness is nothing but not reading books, or always depending on someone else's decision for you to take the decision. For example, in this intellectual laziness, intellectual is nothing but we call it as buddhi. So in buddhi, we have two types of buddhi called Anma buddhi and Sangha buddhi. Anma buddhi is nothing but our self intellect, our own self intellect, and Sangha buddhi is societal intellect. So most of the time, when people with intellectual laziness, they deal with Sangha buddhi, that is societal intellect. You have your own buddhi, but we do not use it because it is of laziness. So there is something called Anma Buddhi, which is self own Buddhi, own intellect. So in this, when we start using our own intellect, we take the correct decisions. It might take some time, but that's okay. You have brain, we have the intellect to decide which is right, which is wrong, which is good, which is bad, which is correct, and which is wrong. So we can always take decisions based on our own intellect. It is not required for us to depend on anyone else. If I have to take a decision, it is on me to think, is this decision good or bad? Many times people depend on Sangha Buddhi, that is societal intellect. They ask people, many people, no, I'm planning to take this path. Is it good or bad? Okay, you get the answer from one. And again, you go to the second person. I'm going to take this decision. Is it good or bad? You keep confirming it with many people, and what at the end arrives like more votes. Path A get more votes, or path B get more votes. You decide based on that, but that's not how it should work. It should work basis on your own intellect, on your own research. So when you get rid of this intellectual fear, I mean, sorry, laziness, or this laziness of your own self, you automatically go in the right direction. So intellectual laziness is something that should be considered very seriously and work on, because you are capable, your mind is capable, your intellectual being is very capable of taking the very right decisions. You do not need to depend on anyone else or anyone else's thought patterns. You have your own thoughts, you have your own thinking, you have your own life. You can compare it all, take the correct decision by making a very good analysis. So, this is called intellectual laziness. So the next one is spiritual laziness. So spiritual laziness is nothing but not reading books, not doing meditation, not doing anything for your own self growth, and not knowing the purpose of life and not teaching to others, as we saw previously. So it is related, right? So in all these, so the first one is not reading books. I do have this laziness sometimes arising within me. So at initial, we have this initial problem, the starting trouble. When we take it up, we'll be able to do it. But the taking up is the matter. So we need to always actively read books, do Sajjana Sangatya and all of this, so that we come out of this spiritual laziness very easily. So take up a book, just read for one page. It is not required for you to complete an entire book within that week. So, taking books also helps in keeping your mind active. Reading the books helps you to keep your mind active and gain much more new knowledge. So, we need to understand that spiritual laziness is nothing but not reading any spiritual books, not doing Sajjana Sangatya, not doing meditation. If it's time for meditation, you need to sit for meditation. It's not like, okay, I have 24 hours, I'll do it at the end of the day. No, whenever you get time, whenever you think, okay, my body and mind need some meditation, you need to sit then and there. And then not doing anything for your own spiritual growth, which involves not reading books and not doing meditation and not knowing the purpose of your life. Spirituality helps everyone to know the purpose of your life. So when you are not spiritually invested because of laziness or anything, and not knowing the knowing the purpose of your life, it is very important that we need to come out of that uh, circle of the spiritual laziness and know the purpose of life and lead a very beautiful and right life. And another laziness in spiritual laziness is not teaching to others. It's very easy for us to learn, but while teaching to others, we might think, uh, will he learn or not? Will he judge me? Or why should I teach to others? I've learned. My life is beautiful. What is the need or requirement for me to teach it to others? No, it is your duty when you have grown and evolved in a beautiful path. It is required for you to take that beautiful path to others and help them grow spiritually and make their life more simplified, I would like to say. So it is very important for all of us to deal with spiritual laziness as well. When you are stuck at spiritual laziness, all the fears and all the other kind of laziness we saw cannot be dealt with. So when you are spiritually active, your life becomes very, very active. So these are the four laziness. So I would like to repeat: body laziness, mental laziness, intellectual laziness, and spiritual laziness. So we are done with two enemies and the third enemy. So third enemy is nothing but limited knowledge. So limited knowledge is nothing but not exploring new things. You have some knowledge, you have some wisdom, and you think, okay, that is it. This is all I know, and this is the correct thing. There's nothing much more. No, you only know 1% of everything. And we almost every day think, I know 99% of the things, and only the 1% I do not know is what we keep thinking. But the thing is, we only know 1%, and there's 99% for us to keep learning every day till our death. And for example, even if you know 99% of the things, even if you have 99% of the knowledge and wisdom, always remember you have not arrived at 100%. You still have that 1%. In case and if at all, if we have that thought, I know 99% of the things, I'm very intelligent and all of that, remember you are never 100. You are always a 99. So always strive to achieve even that 1%. It is not easy for us to achieve 100% because life is a infinite thing of learning. It is an infinite process of learning. So we should be always open to learning from everything and anything. It is not like you should only learn from certain people, learn from certain things. There are many people I see telling, what can we learn from younger people? They itself are dealing very hard with their life. What is there to learn from them? No, you never know what you have to learn from younger people and also from elder people. We might always estimate, you are older generation. What would you know about the current generation? We have to understand that they have so much more experiences than we do have. So it is always right for an individual to learn from younger ones and elder ones, from rich, from poor, from knowledgeable persons and from not so knowledgeable people, from experienced people, from not so experienced people. Because sir always says, help and knowledge and wisdom, you can never estimate from which side you would get. It is surrounded by all the sides. When you are open to learning, the universe helps to get to you. When you are closed mind or when you do not want to learn anything, you the universe does not come to you. So it is important for us to understand, be open, and be always ready to explore things and learn new things. So for this limited knowledge, I would like to suggest a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. So this was the very very first book that I read in my spiritual journey. I read this book in COVID. So this book had a lot of impact on me. This book is about, there was a seagull, and the seagull community is always limited to a certain things, and they do create their boundaries for themselves. Like seagulls cannot fly, we cannot fly like other birds, and seagulls are limited to only enjoying and sleeping and eating food. So there was this one seagull called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It saw many other birds flying high, and it thought, if other birds can fly, why not us? Why not the seagull community? We do have the same wings. So it started exploring different methods of flight and wing techniques, and it arrived at the top stage of flying just like other birds. So this book had a lot of impact on me to explore new things. Do not create boundaries and be stuck in that boundaries. And it gave me the courage. Okay, we have so much more to learn. Why are we limiting ourselves by thinking it is not necessary for me? Each and every learning and each and every step is very important for us to learn. Life is a never ending process of learning and gaining new wisdom and knowledge. So for this, I would like to give a small story, and I think stories are very much exciting, right? So for limited knowledge, the story goes like, there's a frog, let's say frog 1 and frog 2. So frog 1 lives in a small well, and it thinks, I have so much comfort. It's a big well. It lives in a quite comfortable well. So it thinks, such a nice well. There's so much water in this. I can swim, I can play as I would like to, and all of that. And it thinks it is like living like the Maharaja of his own palace. And this frog too that lives in the ocean. And by mistake, this frog too, by navigating some way or something, it comes and falls in the well of the frog one. And the frog one sees and asks, where are you coming from? How did you land in my well? It says, sorry. The frog too says, sorry, I was navigating my way and by mistake I fell in your well. Please excuse me. And the frog one asked, where do you live? Do you have a separate place to live? It says, yeah, I do live in a very big place and all of that. Then frog one asks, a very big place, bigger than the well I do live in? It says, yeah, you cannot even compare. It's very big. So the frog one asks, how big is it? Is it twice big as the well I live in? It says, no, no. Then thrice? It says, no. Then it asks, four times bigger? No, you cannot even compare. Ocean is infinite, right? You cannot tell in like measures. So the frog one gets it gets shocked. I thought I was living like Maharaja. I thought I had all the comforts. And what this frog too is telling, it's living in much more bigger place than what I lived. So it's like, okay, can you show me your place? Where do you live in? I'm very excited to know. like, yeah, come and help me go to the place. We both will go and explore my place, is what the frog 2 says. And when the frog 1 and frog 2 reaches the ocean, frog 1 is astounded. It thinks, oh my god. So for so many years, I thought I was living in a very big well, and I was living a very comfortable, thing, and I thought my home is very bigger. When it sees the ocean, it thinks, okay, I'm wrong. I was living in the very tiniest of the places. See, the frog too lives in the ocean. And I was thinking I was living a very happy and rich life in the well. So, by this story, what we can understand is Frog 1 was living in a delusion of it knows everything. Well is the only biggest thing that a frog lives in. But when it saw Frog 2 live in the ocean, it understood how close minded it was. Living in that small well, in that small limited circle, in that small limited boundary, it did not know there was much more to life, much more different places, different habitats where the frogs live in. So it is very important for us to understand most of the time, 99% of the times, we do live in a well and think we are living in the ocean in real life. But no, you are living in a well, and you need to understand you should come out from your small little well and explore the big ocean surrounded by you, and that is there in the nature. So it is very important for you to be open to any new knowledge, any new wisdom, and understand that we have so much more to learn. So this is the third enemy of limited knowledge. Don't be limited. Expand your thought process, expand your thinking, and always be ready to learn from different things, different people, even from nature. You can tell, how can I learn from nature? You need to learn from nature by being happy, by being content with what it is. It is never asking, okay, I have a tree, can you plant another tree next to me so that I'll have friendship with them and I can enjoy life? No, it is content with what it is, and it is always happy unless and until we destroy it. So keep learning from each and everything, and never be in that small well, but come into the ocean and learn much more. So the fourth and the last most important enemy that all the spiritual masters face is spiritual powers. So this topic, the spiritual powers, all of us meditate, gain many spiritual powers like doing astral travel or knowing our past lives or being able to foresee our future and tell, no, I saw all these in my dreams, and no, showing it off to others. I have so many spiritual powers and all of that. No, spiritual powers are gained by you not for your own physical or materialistic growth, but for your soul development and societal development. If you have any spiritual power, always remember that spiritual power is given by the universe to you, not for your materialistic gains or spiritual gains. Many people who gain spiritual powers, they be like, okay, I've gained the spiritual power. If I think something, I'll get something. So that something should not be like, okay, I'll keep a sankalpa, sit in meditation. I want a car by, this month end. I want a big bungalow by this month end. No, that is not spirituality is meant for. Spirituality is meant for your soul development and societal development. In which other ways you can help, you can use these spiritual powers for the betterment of this society. So when you get that spiritual powers, always think, how can I help people, or how can I bring many people into meditation, or keep a sankalpa of the nature should be great, or many pyramids should be built across the world, or people should become vegetarians. All these sankalpas should be used for if you have spiritual powers, but not like I want, this gold necklace. Someone next to my house has gold necklace. I'll also do meditation. Use these spiritual powers to buy a gold necklace, to buy a car, to buy a bungalow. No, we should always know how to use our spiritual powers. It is very important that what we get from the universe should be used for universe, but not for your own self. And also, many people, when they get spiritual powers, they get stuck in there. They do not move beyond. If someone does past life regression therapy and they see their past life, or someone do astral travel, they get stuck there. You should never get stuck in spiritual powers. There's much more to spirituality. All these spiritual powers or spiritual experiences are a part and experiential journey in our spiritual journey. So we need to understand, if you gain a spiritual power or spiritual experience, you, okay, it is nice, you gained a very good wisdom, knowledge, and a great experience, but do not get stuck in there. You should move from that experience to another new experience, and from that another new experience to a better experience. So never use spiritual powers for a wrong purpose or for materialistic purpose, but for the betterment of the society and for the betterment of your own soul. So for this also, I do have a short story. I guess you're liking the stories, isn't it? Are you not liking the stories which I mentioned? You like it, right? I hope you like it. So a small story for this one as well. So there was a Muni called Basmasura. So this Basmasura Muni, he did lots of meditation, lots of tapasya alone in the mountains and gained all the spiritual powers. And once he gained all these spiritual powers, he got the ego. No one can stop me. I gained all these spiritual powers. I can curse anyone. I can give shapas to anyone. No one can stop me. I have so much no strength in me. I have so much willpower in me. If anyone comes across or against my way, I can curse them and they'll die. So he was, roaming around with this head weight and with this ego of spiritual powers. I would like to mention, most of the people who gain spiritual powers or spiritual experiences in the general spiritual path, they do have an ego coming up. And I would say, if at all you're dealing with that ego, please destroy it, or else it is going to destroy it or destroy you in the future. So never roam around with spiritual ego or head weight that, no, I have all these spiritual powers you do not have. I can see all my past lives you cannot see, or I can see the future and foretell the future you cannot do. No, it is just for an experience. Do not roam around with head weight or ego. So coming back to the story, so this Basmasura Muni, he was roaming around with head weight, and after so many years of tapasya and meditation, gaining spiritual powers, he finally comes into his village to explore how the village was, because since many years he's been doing meditation, right? So he wants to come and explore people, how the village is and all of that. So many people by then had known, okay, if we go against this man, he's gonna curse us. If he curses us, we'll be turned into ashes. The spiritual power what this Muni got is, if at all anyone goes against him, he has a power in his right hand, and if he keeps his right hand on someone's head and curse them, they'll turn into ashes then and there. So most of the people knew this. Okay, if we argue or get into some kind of trouble with him, he will curse us and we'll turn into ashes. So everyone were like, okay, Guruji, how are you doing? All good. They would not get into any kind of argument and unwanted things with this Muni. So he's like, see, everyone is respecting me. Everyone is, seeing me in a very bigger position. He had this head weight. So all this was seen by Lord Vishnumurti from above. He's like, you're doing, no, you're roaming around with lot of headweight. I think it is time for me to come to the earth and teach you the lesson and show the taste of your own medicine. So once after this Muni Basmasura came to the village, there was a festival at the same time. And he was like, yay, festival, we are going to enjoy, see all the colorful things in and around us. And he was very excited. So during the festival times in the villages, there are many dancers, beautiful dancers coming and performing dances, right? So Lord Vishnumurti took the form of a dancer and came and started dancing in front of Muni Basmasura. And this Muni Basmasura was very much involved and very much indulged himself in his dance, and he was enjoying himself completely, not knowing it is Lord Vishnumurti. And he's like, some dancer is dancing very nice, happily he was dancing. And amidst all of this chaos, what Lord Vishnumurti did is, by dancing, he took the hand of Muni Bhasmasura and placed it on his own head and did a curse. And then and there, Muni Bhasmasura became ashes. And when they went into the higher worlds, Muni Bhasmasura was like, how did you do this? How can you cheat me? How can you? I mean, I did so much of meditation and did so much of tapasya and gained this power. How can you show the taste of my own meditation? Medicine to me. And Lord Vishnumurti says, see, that's how you were roaming around when you were down. You were showing so much attitude, so much head weight, so much ego because you had this power. So I had to come down in form of a dancer and show the taste of your own medicine to you. So now you understand that whenever you get spiritual powers, it is not for you to misuse it by cursing people and burning them down to ashes. But if you had used for the betterment of the society, you would not be here talking with me. You would happily live down, on the earth with much more peace and contentment. But since you were showing so much ego, I had no other option but to show the taste of your own medicine to you. So this is very important, that if at all we are dancing high with so much head weight and ego, someday or the other day the universe will pull us down to zero, not even zero, I would say, to negative. Because when a spiritual person does it and when a normal person does it, the negative effect is 10% for a normal person, and the negative effect for a spiritual person is minus 10%, because you know you shouldn't do it but still you're doing it. So it is very important that we do not be with spiritual ego and always get over it, and always be with humility and humbleness. I would like to tell this for Patri sir. He has so much spiritual powers, yet he does not show it in front of us, or does not do Maya mantra a bit in front of people. He's very natural. He's very humble. I think most of the people who's met him knows this. So always remember, whenever you have spiritual power, there's some kind of ego that arises within you, even if you know it or not. Just realize that you are going in the right path and get rid of this main enemy called spiritual power. And this, for another example I would like to give before I conclude. We all know Ravanasura, right? Ravana. He was the strongest. He did meditation for many years, tapasya for many years, gained all the spiritual powers. He was even more strong than Lord Rama, right? But his own head weight, his own ego, he did not know what is the right way to use the spiritual powers. And he went in the wrong way of, or wrongdoings by, taking away the kingdom, the Lanka, and burning down everything and irritating people and going in the wrong direction. And he saw his own end, right? So we all know Ravana is much more stronger than Rama, but who at the end won? It is Rama, because it was never about spiritual powers. It was about the truth. It was about how you led your life. When we lead our life with proper and right direction, the universe is always with us and helps us go in the right direction. So yeah, we've come to an end. These are the four enemies that we should look in within ourselves, but not the outside world. Once we deal with all these enemies within ourselves, I think dealing with enemies in the outside world is not even a thing. And I think at that time we would not even have enemies in the outside world. So, yeah, I hope this session was of some help to you to understand all these. And thank you so much, Mansi, Pariyakka, and PSSM Swag for giving me this beautiful opportunity, for sharing my little thing of what I learned. And yeah, thank you everyone for patiently listening. I hope it wasn't boring but nice. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vandana. You have gracefully handled the session here.
Thank
So
you.
beautiful. And you're looking so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone wants to share something regarding the 4 fears? Did you anybody faced it or anybody overcome it? You can share your experience as well.
Yeah, like mine, no, you saw like the scooty and the car ones. So if you have anything, you can share it.
I'm still not able to learn car. I haven't.
Okay, so you need to dive in now.
Yes.
Actually, I also seen one of the biggest saints in the UP. He's having a lot of powers. So I have seen the examples. One person came with so many issues, and he's showing their power. That guy is showing the power to that saints. So when he started living, and saint not said anything, there's a no bumper anything. That car is automatically back, fully loaded people, and I don't know how it happens. There are a lot of stories with that sense, but at one point of time in their life, when saints using this power, or like they have created so much property in that particular area, so by then people are going to curse them, like it's not a good sign like that. So they don't have that much power previously, which I have seen personally. Now when I gone, like people are saying so many things, but I'm not going to accept, because we don't have to, like, whatever he is doing, he's their own karma, correct? But we know he's a saint, so we have to give the respect, that's it, without of expecting anything. So this is one of the thing. And another thing is it's very easy to say for body shaming and anything, but in reality, it's not going to be accepted. Even though we are in this part for 2 years, I'm doing this, but when, see, suppose when we are looking for, we are getting the like marriage opportunity. So we are going to see the, first of all, the faces of the girl, correct? Without seeing the biography first. And even though you are ready, your family is not going to be ready, because we are going to see, going to judge by the face only. This is how the reality is. And it's easy to say, but still we are also on the same path. But if we are also struggling with this, we are not overcome. It's very easy to say, but in practically, I thought this, like, maybe a time comes when we are going to overcome this. Thank you for wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the sharing, Visit.
So, with this, I would like to conclude today. Tomorrow, I would like to meet you again with another beautiful session and with another speaker. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to PMC English. Thank you.